Hello, my name is Sung Park. This is week 2 of my update on a little add-on that I'm working on called AddPicto. So here's my update. I'm going to start sharing my screen. All right, so in this, I'm just going to cover what we're learning about the API support for slides, docs, and sheets, as well as some of the issues that we're having around rotate and flip when the mask area and the background area are offset. I'll explain what that means in a little bit. So let's first talk about the API supports. So as we've been working on this is what we're discovering. So in this example that we are currently in slides, this is something that we've been working on. I'm just going to do this and rotate that, insert. Should be inserted, awesome. And then I'm going to choose something else like this device and cats. And maybe to that guy, sure, why not? And insert that. So as you can see, things are working as expected in Google Slides to be able to insert. Perfect. And then on top of that, if we go back and select something else and then click on Edit Selected, it pulls the information so that we can now change the image and such. So that's as expected. There we go. And then we can say insert, and that should then update. Perfect, looking good. Now let's go to Google Docs. Google Docs should behave the same way. So I'm going to select something and let's do bunnies this time around. That looks awesome. I'm going to do insert. And that should insert this masked image. I'm going to also select something else like that. And let's choose that guy. Insert. And that should insert. Perfect. I'm going to select this, go back, click on edit, and it should bring up that information. Yep. And then when I change the image, like so, and then click insert, it should then update the selected item. All right, so far so good. Now let's finally go to Google Sheets. Same thing, I'm just gonna select something, have an image like so, and then click on insert. And you will see that it may take a little bit and it should insert. Perfect. So far so good. There we go. Now let's go back. Actually, let's do something else like this. I'll get to that in a second. Oops, sorry. We'll get to that in a second. We'll get to that in a second. Here we go. And let's choose some birds. Oops. Well, looks like we're having some problems. I'm just going to close this, reopen it. So it's under extensions and launch. Go. And we want birds. Go. I'm going to choose that for now. Insert. Okay. No. Okay. Insert again. There we go. That bigger. Okay, great. Now you'll see that when I go back to the select screen, select shape screen, there isn't an option to edit. So the reason why is that we found out that the API for Google Sheets is different, and it has a handful of limitations around images, and therefore it won't allow us to add that functionality. So for Google Sheets, we can support selecting a shape, masking an image, and then inserting it into your Google Sheets, but that's it. You can't edit it, which is a real bummer. And again, that's not something that we can control. It's essentially Google Sheets API. So that is that. Some other thing is that going back to Google Slides, we can actually copy this masked image and copy it and then go to Google Docs and paste it, right? And then I'm going to select it and click on edit, and it'll bring that information. So then I'm going to change that to a bunny and click on insert, and you'll notice that it's not going to work. So we're going to dig into that a little bit further to see if that's a bug or if that's something that, again, Google Docs does not support. I'm personally hoping that it's just a bug so that we can support the cross workspace applications. So if we were to go back the other way, so I'm going to copy this and go to Google Slides and then paste it. And then I'm going to go back, click on Edit Selected. Information pops up. I change that to a kitty and then click Insert. Then for Google Slides, it works like so. So that's great. So that makes things a little bit easier when you're going back and forth between slides and docs. Unfortunately, if I copy and then go to Google Slides and paste, it doesn't work. It tries to paste it into the selected cell, which is not going to work. So if I were to then select this and then do paste, again, it does not work. So that's a bummer. So now I'm going to copy from Google Sheets and try to paste that into Google Docs. Okay, so that works. Unfortunately, if I go back and click on Edit, it does not work. And again, that's because of the limitations of the Google Sheets API. And again, if I go to the Google Slides and paste, it's going to do the same thing. That it's going to paste that image, that masked image. But when I, again, try to edit it, it will not work. So that's a bummer. So the second thing that I wanted to give you an update on was to rotate and flip when mask area and background areas are offset. So what that means is that you can see in these examples, we have this like background, and then we have this mask region, this area, and the mask area is inside of the background. And we're finding that we don't have any problems around that. But let's say we wanted to offer something else like the offset, where the color and the mask area is in two different locations and they're not necessarily on top of each other. So we're discovering that when we're trying to support that, we're actually working with three different things. The first is the view box. Next is what I'm calling the orange box, but that could be the color or the image. And then last is the gray box, which can be the masked area. So when it is offset like this, we need to understand all of the XY coordinates and the width and height of all three elements, the view box, the orange box, and the gray box. And then when we do the rotation, what actually happens is it's rotating like this, where the view box stays exactly the same, because even if you rotate it, it's rotating based upon the 0, 0. For the orange box, it's the same. It's rotating based upon the 0, 0. But for the gray box, when we are rotating, we're rotating based upon 100 by 100. So when we rotate that by 90 degrees, what ends up happening is that now the XY coordinates changes to -200, 100. That's not right. And so what we need to do is we need to be able to recognize the fact that there's a negative number, that this is outside of the V box, and then change the coordinates for both the orange box and the gray box. And we need to do this by doing, essentially moving it like that. So we've come up with a little formula that essentially does all of this for rotate as well as flip. But what we're discovering is that when we are importing these assets, these XY coordinates are being defined by the browser. And for whatever reason, it's not doing a great job. For whatever reason, the XY coordinates, when calculated by the browser, is giving weird, inconsistent numbers, like negative numbers, which is why you are seeing this happen, where things are not quite right. So that's what we're trying to solve for is why is the browser number off? So one potential way to solve for that is just having an explicit XY coordinates, so that when we do upload the asset, we ourselves can define the XY coordinates as a starting point, because again, at the initial, there should never be a negative number. And then based upon the original, as it does the calculations to rotate and then change the XY coordinates, everything should be also a positive number. There should be no negative numbers. So that's something that we're trying to work through. So yeah, this project has been interesting in all the different things that we're learning. Again, the fact that the API works differently between all three, the fact that the browser, as it's trying to define the XY coordinates, adds and subtracts weird, giving us weird results. So yeah, so that's kind of where we're at. We're hoping this week to try to fix the rotate so that it will work as expected. And some of the other things is that we want to make sure that this works, in that we want to rotate everything else except for the image. So we do not want to rotate the image. So again, in this example, you can see that the shape and the mask region is rotating, but the actual image is not. That is the effect that we want. So yeah, and hopefully once we get all that squared, we can then submit to the Google Marketplace for submission and approval. And that in itself is a whole can of worms, which I will give an update next week on that process. We had to do this for the currently live add-on for Google Slides, and it's only available for Google Slides currently. And that process was very tedious. But again, I will go over that next week. Thanks so much for checking out my update. And I have a great rest of the week, and I will talk to you guys next Monday. Thank you.